South Africa, the Rainbow Nation, is facing a new storm. The country, known for its diverse cultures and rich history, is now at the center of a heated international debate. The United States, once a vocal critic of apartheid, is now embroiled in a bitter dispute with South Africa over its land reform policies. This disagreement has sparked widespread protests and intense political discussions. At the heart of this controversy lies the Expropriation Bill, aimed at addressing the deeply rooted issue of land ownership. The bill seeks to redistribute land to rectify historical injustices. BBBEE Commissioner Tshediso Matona accuses the US of attempting to restore white minority rule. He argues that the US is interfering in South Africa's sovereign affairs. The US claims its concerns stem from potential human rights violations and the targeting of ethnic minorities. American officials argue that the bill could lead to instability and economic decline. Many in South Africa see it as a thinly veiled attempt to protect the interests of white landowners. They believe the US is prioritizing its own economic interests over justice and equality. The outcome of this dispute could have far-reaching consequences for US-Africa relations. It remains to be seen how both nations will navigate this complex and sensitive issue. To understand the current tensions, one must delve into the history of South Africa. The roots of the current socio-economic disparities can be traced back to the colonial era and the subsequent implementation of apartheid policies. Apartheid left a deep scar on the nation, with stark inequality in land ownership. The system enforced racial segregation and economic disenfranchisement, creating a legacy of dispossession. Despite making up over 80% of the population, Black South Africans own a disproportionately small amount of land. This imbalance has perpetuated poverty and limited economic opportunities for the majority. The Expropriation Bill, signed into law by President Cyril Ramaphosa, is seen by many as a step towards fulfilling the promise of a more equitable society. It aims to address historical injustices and redistribute land more fairly. The bill empowers the government to expropriate land without compensation in certain circumstances. This controversial measure is intended to accelerate land reform and rectify past wrongs. However, it has been met with fierce opposition, particularly from white farmers and right-wing groups. They argue that it threatens property rights and could destabilize the agricultural sector. The US response to the Expropriation Bill has been swift and severe, signaling a significant shift in international relations. President Donald Trump has imposed sanctions on South Africa, cutting financial aid and other forms of economic support. Additionally, the US has imposed travel restrictions on South African government officials, limiting their international mobility. The US argues that its actions are justified, claiming that the Expropriation Bill targets ethnic minorities and violates fundamental property rights. However, many in South Africa see it as an echo of colonialism, with the US once again dictating terms to an African nation, undermining their sovereignty. Commissioner Matona accuses the US of hypocrisy and double standards, pointing out similar actions in other countries that went unpunished. The sanctions have been met with defiance by the South African government, which vows to continue with its policies. However, they have also had a negative impact on the economy, already struggling with high unemployment and poverty rates, The sanctions have exacerbated these issues, leading to increased hardship for ordinary citizens. The US-South Africa standoff over land reform has implications that extend far beyond the two countries directly involved. For South Africa, the stakes are incredibly high. The country is facing a delicate balancing act. It is determined to address the historical injustices of apartheid and deliver on the promise of land reform. However, it cannot afford to alienate its international partners, particularly the US. The choices South Africa makes in the coming months will shape its future and could have a ripple effect across the entire globe.